Let's do this.
Okay. This is also live, by the way.
Oh my gosh, when that happened.
It's okay.
What? Oh my god.
It's okay. We're live now.
Hi, Christian.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Oh man. The reason why is because I had you muted, and because the screen was on the splash screen, I couldn't get your attention visually. I had to send you a message, but I
think that makes it funnier. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Honestly, that's on brand. That's pretty on brand for us.
It's true.
Totally okay. Anyway, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the College's 9 and 10 Variety Hour. We're back.
We're here. We have a second episode. We have planned episodes.
The producers haven't fired us yet.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, 9-10 Variety Hour. So I'm Jess. I'm your local ACPC over at 9 and 10. I go by she, her, and they, them.
And hi, my name is Christian. I am the reservations and events assistant over at Colleges 9 and 10. I use he, him pronouns.
And this is our weekly 9-10 Variety Hour. It's pretty much an hour every week that isn't like a vacation, a holiday, or a final, where we kind of do whatever we want. Now, sometimes it's me and Christian, sometimes it's us and friends, and sometimes it's just your local student leaders, or even maybe your local youth, if you're interested. But this week, we are actually sponsored.
I mean, sponsored is a really strong, we want to highlight something really cool. And this is about the time when someone would say, you know, we're sponsored by someone. We're not actually sponsored by these people, but we want to give them a shout out because some of the stuff we're talking about today, we're going to try and keep it lighthearted, but we understand that some people might have a little bit more of a sensitivity to these topics, and we want to make sure that we have resources available. So, Jess, take it away.
Let's talk about it. So y'all have heard of CAPS, right? So CAPS is the UCSC Mental Health Psychiatric Support Center. So lots of words, but pretty much what they offer you as students are counseling, psychiatric services, support groups, 24-hour, 24/7 like hotlines. There's just nonstop access to any kind of mental health support. When we're talking about mental health, we could be talking about, you know, things like anxiety and depression. We could also be talking about things like, I got into a fight with my best friend and now they're not talking to me and I don't know what to do. It could also be things like getting access to medication, or if you're a person with learning disability, getting the kind of support that's more holistic. Especially right now, a lot of people don't know how to access this, because usually people get access to CAPS to one of three ways. One, they walk into the university and be like, I know what I need, I'm ready, I'm coming in, and they get connected. Secondly, sometime in the first or second year, usually, someone else says, hey, I think you need some support, and connects them or walks them over. Or thirdly, you just happen upon it. The third one's pretty unlikely, but this is one of those moments where you're just going to happen upon it. Right now, CAPS is still open. It's still offering all of the resources that it did priorly, but without having to wait in the long walk-in lines or having to wait in the lounge. So if you need any kind of support off or on campus, they all have telecommuting or phone commuting services available. They still have support groups, and definitely check out their website. If it gets overwhelming, because sometimes when you have a lot of information, it gets that way, all you need to know is make a call. So their phone number is 831-459-2628. You can also just look this up, UCSC CAPS this, and they can connect you with both their resources and resources local to you. But yeah, that's our unofficial official sponsor of this episode. Which, talking about this episode, Christian, what are we talking about today?
Okay, so I was muted. Yeah, first day back, right? This is the first day of work back from break, right? And so the new year is always a time of new beginnings and all that stuff, but these past several months, this past year has been so trying, and so we want to send it off. There's time for new beginnings. We'll tackle that next week, but for now, we want to say bye to 2020. We want this thing to go into the ground. We realize that, you know, there have been 4 days, but how many of us have been able to process that? So let's send it off with, what are we doing today to send off 2020?
We're talking about tombstones and the death of 2020. Because, you know, usually at New Year's we're like fresh beginnings, bringing in the new year. No, let's talk about the death of this terrible year. Maybe you were lucky and things weren't as bad. For most people, they were pretty bad. And sometimes we can go through these stages when things are shitty, at the very least, that feel like mourning or feel like grief or feel like death. And I feel like especially this year, everyone went through, you know, the stages of grief. We have denial. In January, February, and March, we were like, nah, that's not gonna hit us. We're fine. And then it hit us and we're like, it's gonna be 2 months, 3 months most.
It's barking.
How many months has it been? I actually lost count of time.
Yeah, no, the joke is that time doesn't exist anymore, but it's about this time that of the year when I first heard about COVID, or, you know, coronavirus being a thing over in China. So we're not going to focus on COVID. We're trying to process throughout the rest of the year, but we have a really nice, fun activity that we're going to be doing throughout our conversation today. So I'm just going to really quickly transition over. We have art and doodles going on, and so we're going to have this up for your viewing pleasure of sort of what we're going to be doing. So Jess, what are you drawing?
So I'm actually going to be drawing a tombstone. So the reason we're doing this as a theme is two-part. One is what we just kind of try to represent, you know. The end of something can be something to talk about, work through, or even celebrate. So the death of 2020 can definitely be a thing to celebrate and be happy about. Or it can be something that you make art about. And the second part that we're talking about death is because I really like talking about death, like as a person.
Yeah. Our first conversation, you were like, let's talk about death.
Yeah. How do you feel about death, Christian? It's like a core value of mine. And that actually has a lot to do with two core beliefs that I personally have.
Okay. Hit me.
One is that death is the true great equalizer, in that anything and everything, except for maybe like a rock, will die.
Mm-hmm. No matter anything and everything has an end.
Yes. And I find that personally incredibly comforting, and connecting. Like, no matter how people perceive life or experience different things, we're all gonna die, and we all have a relationship with that truth. And I think it's a really lovely conversation to have when you talk to people about, like, how do they want to die, or how do they handle the conversation about death, if they even handle it. Some cultures celebrate it, some cultures actively avoid it, but it's a universal truth.
And there's a lot, it's really interesting in the background conversations we had talking and choosing this topic. We went into it already and we're like, well, no, we have to save it for the freaking stream because of how weird it can get, how interesting it can be, you know. And part of it is because I just like weird things, like,
which is great because we're coworkers and I am a weird thing, so together we have a great working relationship. But yeah, so death is a thing. And the second part is, honestly, I just think death is a cool topic to talk about. It covers a lot of different things. So one of the things that I advocate for with a lot of people is knowing how much funerals cost and the environmental impact of them. Because I actually went through a really big cancer scare about 2 years ago.
I did not know this.
I think this is the first time you're hearing about this, Christian. Where in my family, the women tend to live to about 100 at the least. And then in my parents' generation, suddenly that changed very drastically.
Okay.
And then I had this cancer scare, and I was pretty much put into this position where I had to start rethinking the time I thought I would have.
I see.
So I assumed I would have about 100 years on me. And I had to start thinking that I might have 50.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's 50%.
That is a whole like 2/4 of my $1 life.
If you think about how much you've spent already, you've already spent at least a quarter.
At least one tiny quarter of my life. And so I had to think about two things very quickly as I was dealing with this, which was, okay, I'm going to die. Like, not now, like, not like done, gone. But at some point I will.
Okay.
And my family, like my mother and my sister, they're not my biological family.
I see.
We're not even like legally bound, but they're my family. And so I also had to think about, and I think a lot of people who are gay, trans, queer, adopted, or from foster care think about this, which is, do I want my biological parents to have my dead body?
I see.
This is, I think, more common in the queer community, and especially in the trans or genderqueer community.
Yeah, because unfortunately, a lot of times you are forced, but you tend to seek out a different family, different support system, different network of people.
Yeah, but also like your biological family is going to be the default family that gets your body and does any kind of death practices, at least in the United States, based off our legal system.
Yeah.
So if you were assigned female at birth, but you're a man, if you die unexpectedly, you don't have anything planned out.
Yeah.
Your family is going to treat your body in a way that's not representative of you. Like, this is your biological family.
Yeah.
And your chosen family might not even be invited. And I had to think about that really hard, because for me, the last thing I wanted was to make my family suffer. Like my chosen family, the people who I love and have taken care of me. And the last thing I want is for my mom to put me in a pink dress with pink lipstick and curl my hair. That's just not my style at all. Period. That would have sucked.
Honestly, that's closer to my style.
It is, and you look great in pink.
I love the color pink. It's so good.
It looks good on you too.
Thank you. That's really validating.
It does. Did someone tell you that it doesn't? Because they're lying.
No, it's just anxiety.
Oh,
that's a topic for a different day.
Oh, we should talk about anxiety. I mean, talking about anxiety, let's talk about the anxiety of death and life. So for me, how I decided to deal with the engrossing anxiety of death was to do what I do as a type A person, which is overplan and over-research to an unrealistic extent.
I see.
And how I did that was I actually did a presentation on accessible and sustainable death practices in the United States.
This I knew. This part I knew. This part was our first conversation, and you were like, sustainable death practices. I'm like, yes, I know this tangentially. So before meeting you, I now know a lot more. Before meeting you, my entire sort of understanding of sustainable death practices was returning your proteins and your cells and everything about your body to the earth. So turning yourself into a tree was one of those things. Cremation was one of those things. I don't know if that I now understand that's not necessarily very sustainable, but that was my understanding beforehand. So for those of us who are at home watching this, can you go into a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted with my funeral, and I'm going to place this on me because I think it often makes people feel more comfortable to talk about death if they're talking about someone else's experience with death. Yeah. Was I wanted to make sure that my chosen family, so the people who are my family, didn't have to spend thousands of dollars, didn't have to question what I wanted, and knew that what I planned was something that was really important to me. Mm-hmm. Those were my original thoughts. I didn't want them to have to question or wonder what to do with what was left of me, so my body and my things. And I didn't want them to spend what the average funeral costs in the United States are, which is $10,000.
What?
And Christian, wait a minute, because I've got a whole thing on this. They shouldn't cost that much.
It really shouldn't.
They shouldn't. That's the average. And this is not to judge anybody's like cultural funeral practices. For a lot of communities, like spending your money on your dead is a sign of respect and caring and like dignity.
I see.
But that's never going to be me.
Yeah. Okay.
And a big part of it also is that, you know how people talk about big pharmas?
Yeah.
There's big funeral homes.
Oh, ew.
It gets grosser. Just give me a moment.
Oh no.
It gets so much worse, Christian. So these big funeral homes also have lobby groups. And what they have done to the legality of death in the United States is weird. So, for example, until like a little bit past the Civil War, home funerals and taking care of the dead and like touching and cleaning your dead was never seen as gross, wrong, or dangerous. And these people knew about bacteria, these people knew about diseases that bodies could spread and how to prevent that from happening. So it wasn't from ignorance, it was just that's caring. And then during the Civil War, people's bodies were far, far away from home, often in warmer climates.
Okay.
And so embalming started as a way of preserving those bodies so that they could be brought back home and could be cared for by their loved ones. But once the Civil War ended, these young entrepreneurs of embalming still wanted to make money. So they started doing two things. One, they started telling people that bodies were inherently unclean and dangerous. Now, to be clear, a body is only as dangerous as it was dangerous when it was alive. So if you have, if I die and I die of Ebola, blah, right? Body fluids all over the place. Yeah. Not great. My body is inherently unsafe. Don't touch me.
I used to do this with my younger sister. Like, oh, you don't want this cereal, it's stale. But really, I just wanted to get to the prize at the bottom of the box.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Right?
People suck.
Wait,
anyway,
it gets worse.
It always gets worse.
And
it always
then
gets
they
worse.
started realizing that if they put things into law and they reasoned that, like, if you don't do this, it's not safe, then they could convince people to embalm legally.
I see.
So, for example, I'm gonna talk about one more thing about COVID, because this is a very good example of why this was so terrible in the long term. So in New York City, there was a lobbied law that says crematories can only be owned by cemeteries with land. So what that means is two things. One, land is freaking expensive in New York.
Yeah.
So only either big funeral homes, which I still find weird that's a real thing, but big funeral homes can afford it, or people who have already been in the industry and have
already have those assets.
But it also means there's a limit of how many crematories there are. So they can have a high demand and as such demand a high cost.
Mm-hmm.
And before COVID hit, many of these cremation machines in New York were at max capacity already. And so when COVID did hit New York, and all the tragedies that were happening there, just because of the unluck of bad government response in the United States and being a city where people are close together and a lot of misinformation, and also this lobby, people had to deal with death in a way that I think I would be scared of.
Yeah.
So we had to talk about things like refrigerating trucks, which actually is a normal response during a pandemic. If you don't see those, that's a bad sign.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, our government is still working and responding to this well. Yes, there's too many bodies for the crematories to handle, but we already knew that in New York before a pandemic happened, when things were just average death amount. So the fact that there was a quick response to the increase in people dying was a good sign. But because of that lobby being set up that was originally geared toward economic gain, that's why we had to see that happen in the first place.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I work really hard to advocate for people to talk about death. So first off, they know about these lobby lines that force them into positions where they have to pay an excessive amount for taking care of their loved dead, because spoilers.
Oh, spoilers. Okay.
Spoilers. So a cremation should cost no more than $200 max. Most funeral homes will sell it to $2,000 to $5,000, and that's just not. That's not the case. That's not how expensive they should be at all. And that's because they're upselling you on a container, and they're saying you can't just like bring your own container for your dead loved one.
Oh, okay.
We have to service the body. We have to embalm the body first. All these things. It's bullshit. So one of the first things that I realized when I was doing this research is like, oh, my family could take care of my body for less than $200. Awesome. And the second couple thoughts were, okay, what's the environmental impact? Because for me, my ideal, like, I'm dead scenario is dig a hole, put my body in the ground, put some dirt over it, we're good.
Okay. This was before.
This is before.
Okay.
Because it turns out these kind of funerals are called green funerals now. They're very bougie, and they usually cost $25,000.
Oh.
Big funeral homes are evil. Big funeral homes are evil. Support your local funeral homes. But yeah, and there's no reason. There's no reason at all. They're just trying to get the same amount of money or even more from people. So there are ways of doing this in a more environmentally friendly way, which is you can actually use your corpse as a form of environmental activism. Because even though there are definitely laws that don't protect living bodies in the United States, there are a surprising amount of strict laws protecting dead bodies in the United States. Are
you serious?
I'm so serious.
I mean, I know you're serious,
cool.
But this is bewildering.
So there have been people, there's been a long history actually, especially during the AIDS crisis, of people using their dead bodies or dead remains as a form of activism. As a queer person, one of the things that I am very proud of the queer community during the AIDS crisis, on top of hundreds and thousands of other things to be proud of, is that many people, when they died, asked in their will for their ashes to be thrown at politicians who were preventing, like in their faces, who were preventing forward movement.
Oh, that's so metal.
It is the coolest. One person actually asked their friends to carry their body to be thrown onto the lawn of the White House. They didn't get that far.
Oh, okay.
But even now, you can still do this kind of activism. Maybe you don't want your body parts thrown into the general area of the politician you don't like. So if you want to, like, I support you. But you can actually bury your body in nature and actually have it preserved. Cemeteries have a lot more regulation and protection than natural land when it comes to things like businesses trying to pave it over, make it into this, make it into housing, make it a profitable space.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christian, let's say there's like a beautiful piece of land where you live. You know you're gonna die in like 6 months. I don't know why. Don't die. And you're just like, I'm lobbying. I'm trying to protect this land. It's so important to me. It's so important to the environment. What can I do? You can just be buried there.
Oh.
Like legitimately.
Just right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like have an official thing. Now, California has stricter laws around it, but honestly, if you find a good environmental lawyer, you can get around it, and then it's a cemetery. They can't do anything about it.
Interesting.
So sad.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of that before. I mean, sure, there's always like, oh, like when I eventually go, what do I want done? But I never thought about it in that sense of like using this chunk of meat to fight the man, you know? Like,
yeah, it's incredibly cool. I personally did not choose that, partly because the amount of legal research I would have to do ahead of time is just like a lot.
Yeah. You've got 6 months to live. Like you're gonna spend that not researching. You're gonna spend that doing other stuff.
I'm gonna spend that with mariachi drag band.
All right.
That's my goal. That's what I want at my funeral, is a drag mariachi band singing Mother, Mother, and Queen.
Well, there you go. And I support that.
Thank you.
It's freaking sweet.
I appreciate it. But in that process, I learned a lot about death in the United States, but also in the world. I learned a lot about how people talk about death. And I learned a lot about existential joy. So existential dread is this, I will die, the world is ending, and there's nothing I can do about it, and so I'm going to actively avoid it because it scares me, which is a totally normal human thing to experience. Totally normal.
That
Can't
just
judge it, won't judge it.
I call that a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
I don't actually. Sometimes, but
hey, if that's what you need to call it to get through, I'm going to respect your choices, my man. But what I realized was this concept of existential joy, which is just, I'm going to die. Nothing matters. It's okay. And so in my research, I came across my absolute favorite gravestone.
Oh, okay.
Which I think I shared with you earlier.
Yes. Yeah, I have that pulled up over here. I've not looked at it, but I do have it up. So, give me one second.
It's the Paste Eaters one.
Yes, that one. Give me one sec. This thing.
Yes. So, this is a gravestone, and it just says exactly what it means. Unknown man died eating library paste, July 4th, 1908. And when I saw that, I started laughing.
Oh, no.
Because I was like, you know, there's probably some serious background story going on there. And we're going to link this article that has this picture in the comments below. In the bio below.
In the doobly-doo.
In the doobly-doo below. So you can go ahead and read it. But when I saw it, I was like, as long as I don't die eating paste, specifically library paste, I think I'm gonna be okay. I think I'm gonna have lived a good life, but I just don't die eating library paste.
Specifically library paste. Is there something different about library paste than regular paste that would possibly kill this man?
I just feel like the
Specificity.
Because it was specificity.
There we go.
Was what was funny for me.
I got you there.
But not really. I mean, if you eat too much of anything, you'll die.
True.
I just feel like glue will probably kill you quicker.
So okay. It's either there was, a little amount of glue, and the glue was toxic enough that it stopped this man's, life force, or it was just an extraordinary amount of glue that prevented this man from continuing his life.
Could go either way.
Do we know where? So this is in Goldfield, Nevada?
Yeah. So you'll see this in a lot of ghost towns, are these kind of gravestone markers, which are just rocks with paint in them. We have a couple in Joshua Tree, and definitely in the Sierra Nevadas, just ghost towns with ghost cemeteries. And honestly, if you check out your local historical cemetery, you'll see similar weird things. You'll see them more in mining cemeteries, but yeah, people die weird. You'll die weird. I'll die weird. It's okay. But as long as you don't die eating library paste, you've lived an okay life.
Oh, great.
Is my thought.
Yeah. And so this is where your existential joy came from, because this is a remarkably rare way to go, especially nowadays. 110 years later? Yeah. 112 years later. But still, that doesn't mean the bar should be any lower.
And then as I kept doing research, I came across this other tombstone that I thought was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Okay, that's the second one, right?
Yes.
Ravens?
So you'll want to scroll down. This is a whole article about more LGBTQ death activism. And as you scroll down, you'll come across a section labeled Memorial to a Marriage. And if you scroll a little bit below that, you'll see this beautiful
this one or
statue.
not?
Keep going. Gay is good though. A little bit more, right here. Oh. Beautiful. So this artist created, planned, and set her burial plot for her and her partner. And she made this specifically and planned all this specifically because by the time that they knew that they were like long-term for life partners, gay marriage wasn't legalized at all.
Okay. Yeah,
it's a weird thing to think about, right?
Yeah. Because
now I feel so sure that we can't go back on that. Like that this is just the thing. Like gay marriage is a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a question. Mm-hmm. But she made this during a time where it wasn't. And she wanted two things to be very known about her and her partner after they died. One, that they fully loved each other. These were not friends. These were lovers and partners.
They're just friends.
Like, why? Just let them be cottagecore lesbians in the woods like they wanna be. Yeah. But they want to make sure they're not friends. So like, my partner's actually coming home right now. How ironic. They wanted to make sure that people in the future knew that they were not just friends. So they're mostly naked with nothing but a bed sheet over them. And two, they wanted to make it very, very clear if at any point anybody tried to tell them after their death that they were not partners, that they did not have these things. They had a physical thing to link them together. There was no question they were married.
It's something that will stand the test of time.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's still there. They're still alive, and they still plan to be buried beneath it. But I think of that also in like grave markers and graves. And so with that in mind, y'all may have noticed that we've been drawing tombstones down here. And that's because, Christian, that looks so good.
Oh yeah. Sorry, you've been talking a lot, so I've had a lot of time to go ahead, keep talking, but I'll zoom in here.
So one of the things that we're talking about along with the death of 2020 and death in general is gravestones. So it has historically been the case in many cultures and many areas across history that the way we mark our gravestones has a meaning to it. But one of the things that you can look up, and one of the things that we're going to put in the doobly doo below, is a couple of charts that explain the symbolism of certain gravestone markers. So if you're living in the United States, or even if you're not, and you go to an older cemetery, we're talking about 1500, 1600, 1700, 1800s, you'll see some of these markings. Yes, that's exact one, Christian.
Yeah.
And they all have meaning. Now, this one is kind of a shallow dive into these meanings, but they have a variety across different cultures. So what Christian and I are going to do is we're going to pick a few and draw them on our tombstones or around our tombstones to represent this crazy year.
Yeah. So
for example.
So, okay, let me go over to. So, this is my first one. It's just. Oh, hold on. I was having trouble with this earlier because of how I have it flipped. So here lies 2020. Lived from the year 2020 and died in 2020. And I have chosen as my symbol the murder hornet. Remember those? Yeah. So not really any meaning. It's just something to remember just how weird this year got at one point. For a while I was, for like a nanosecond, not a while, for like a nanosecond I was actually worried about murder hornets coming to my door and murdering me with their hornet. With their hornet selves.
Oh no.
Like I said, like a nanosecond. But if I had to pick just an obscure mascot for this year, it would be that. Because so many outlandish things, like a lot of really good things came out of this year. So, you know, hornets as mean as they can be and mean as they're portrayed, there are a lot of really good things that they do for the ecosystem. And so this year, there's been a lot of really good things that came out of it, despite how weird and awful and just absolutely wild it's been. So that's why I chose the hornet. That's my own little symbology. I still have a lot of paper and blank space to fill out, but figured I'll just go ahead and get that out of the way. I wrote this joke 2020 from 2020 to 2020 like a couple weeks ago, and I've been waiting to put it to paper. So yeah.
Do you feel good? Do you feel good about it?
I feel really great about it. I'm enjoying it, seeing it, and actually having done it. I feel much better about it.
Good. I am drawing a hourglass because you'll see these on tombstones as like a passage of time. We're all slowly creeping into death at some point. No question. But also because I lost track of time this entire year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So you have an hourglass on your 2020 tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'm gonna for the benefit of whoever's watching this, I'm gonna be scrolling down through the article. So we can take a look at this. This was really interesting to me. I've known this for a long time, but I've never really gone in depth into it. The colors of death, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to point this out last when we were talking about it, but you were on a roll, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
I appreciate it.
The idea of, you know, funeral homes and all this stuff after the Civil War, that sounds, you know, it sounds very localized. It's the American Civil War. That practice is an American practice. There are lots of other practices around the entire world. A lot of and so something that we, being raised in this society, have come to know as black being the mourning color. You know, the color that you wear a bunch to grieve, or if you're, you know, like me when I was 13 and going through a phase, you know, lamenting the entire world, wore black all the time. Um, but that's not the case in everywhere else. Growing up in an Asian American household, I was told that white was very commonly associated with death and grieving and all that stuff. And they point that out here in this article. I didn't know about red, and I didn't know about yellow. I knew about purple. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That whole practice of capitalizing on death sounds like a very Western thing. Sounds like a very American thing, you know, manifest destiny, all that stuff. But I'm pretty sure other things like that have come up, and now I'm like really interested and want to like research all about this, not just in this society that is most relevant to me, but other societies that are relevant to me. Like, how did I know cremation is really the main thing for was the main thing for a long time in Asian cultures. It's been a while since I feel like it's only been very recent that burials became popular in places like Japan or China or Thailand or, you know, anywhere, Korea. So I want to go back and do a little bit of that research. So encouraging you who might be watching, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, to go search and research yourself. Ow, I hit my elbow. Ow.
I think it's a great idea. Some really good resources that you can check out is a YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician, or a website called The Order of the Good Death. Ask a Mortician is run by a person named Caitlin Doe. I think that's right. Or Dosey. Anyway, she's lovely. She's amazing. She's friendly. If you ever have a child that experiences a goldfish death, she has a whole video on how to talk to your children about goldfish death that is actually fun and light and welcoming. And she talks about a lot of different cultures and histories and how they talk about death. I think she does it in a very fun and respectful way. Yeah. So one of the things I'm including in my tombstone is a butterfly.
Butterfly. Oh, here we go.
So the soul leaving the body, because multiple times this year my soul has left my body. Multiple times between let's see, where do we even start?
What was it? We had the California California wildfires. Like,
okay,
working here at UCSC, there was a lot of like, there was no moment for us to really just, you know, take stock.
Relax.
We had to act, and that to me is an act of having your soul leave your body, just going straight into emergency mode and doing mode. Not having too much time to think. That doesn't mean your soul isn't there. It's just, you know, there was no time. You know, it was a very emergency situation.
Yeah, it definitely was this whole year. But yeah. And then we had the election results, and just the tension ahead of their election. I know there was like 100 other things that happened throughout this year that just kind of felt like getting backhanded over and over again with drama.
The McDonald's spicy chicken nuggets came and left. I'm really sad about that. I don't mean to diminish anything else, but to me that was really important. I liked them. I tried them once, and I can't go back. And now I can't have them.
I mean, no one can tell you what you should grieve about or how you should grieve about it. So if you want to grieve about the chicken nuggets, grieve about the chicken nuggets, Christian. I
mean, I'm not. I wouldn't go far as to say it's grieving. I would like them to come back. I'm pretty sure they'll come back. But I'm just, whenever I walk in and I'm like, I want nuggets, I'm like, oh wait, no, these nuggets are not as good as the nuggets I had before, and I will forever carry that knowledge.
I will forever carry that tragedy. Yeah, so I'm including a butterfly to represent how my soul has left my body multiple times this year. Yeah, normal stuff.
Let's see. I'm choosing the next shape of the next tombstone that I'm going with. I'm gonna go with something a little bit more wider. Something. Let's see. I'm gonna switch back to the. Yeah, I'm gonna go with something like closer to like this.
Nice.
But yeah, and I don't know. There's a back on the web page. There's lots of symbology in the afterlife, and this is going to get really philosophical really fast. But so I want to, you know, I don't mean to diminish it again. I'm just like, this can be an entire podcast in and of itself, you know. But there's a lot of symbology here, a lot of religion. Of course, religion is tied to death and how people process things. Ooh, about the deceased. Here we go. Let's see if there's anything here that's fitting. Yeah, no, I don't know. Nothing here, but who's to say that we have to choose anything from here? Ooh, a beehive. You had an interesting story about bees.
Oh, I have a great story about bees.
Okay.
So around Victorian era, Edwardian era, this kind of zone. By the way, if you ever want to learn like some just beautiful memento mori, some beautiful death practices, check out the Victorians. They did a lot wrong, but their death practices were good. Mildly oppressive of women, but still good. One of the things they did is that if a person had bees on their land or was a beekeeper and they died, it was required and expected for someone to let the bees know that their keeper had died or the owner of the land had died.
This is something that bees can keep track of and are aware of.
Apparently so. Okay. To the point where people would put a black funeral shroud over the bee nest, so the bees could do mourning just as any normal person would. They would move the bees so that the nest could face the funeral parade. That's not the right word. The black parade from My Chemical Romance.
Funeral procession?
Yes, thank you. And would at times even bring some of the bees to the funeral. And this was because it was assumed that if you didn't allow the bees the right to mourn, then either they would all die of sadness and hardship, or they would curse your family.
Oh.
Respect your local bee population.
Do we know what kind of curse?
Just great tragedy would befall upon you.
Oh, okay. So your standard boilerplate curse of...
Mm-hmm.
I see.
I mean, they are bees.
They are bees. Yeah. I imagine, this is so interesting. This could be like a kid's movie or like a Pixar movie or something, you know, like I imagine the queen bee having one of those veils. You talked about the black shroud over the beehive. Like I just imagine like a mini shroud over the queen bee and all the little worker bees and everything just taking a day off to mourn the beekeeper.
I was thinking like up to. But the grandpa dies after becoming a beekeeper.
Oh no.
And then the little Boy Scout has to like convince the bees to stick around. But they're so sad. And they don't know how to deal with that. So, I've included a butterfly, as you can see.
Oh yeah, let me go ahead and transition over.
Mm-hmm. I also want to include one more thing that kind of works with this year.
Okay.
And I feel like a snake. Maybe a snake would be good.
A snake?
No. So, a snake eating its tail represents eternal life.
Oh, the Ouroboros.
And the concept of no beginning and no end.
Yes,
which,
I'm seeing that here.
Definitely has felt like this year, and that we don't know when it started, but it hasn't ended.
I see. Going back to that hourglass symbology that you had earlier. Interesting.
Yeah.
I just like the symbology of an Ouroboros. I think those are cool.
so too.
The history repeating itself, the snake eating itself. It's just kind of epic, I think
So. I feel like mine looks a little bit like a croissant.
It could be a croissant. Croissants are great.
It's a never-ending croissant.
It does look a lot like a croissant.
Croissant eating its tail. Let me just put like a little. There you go.
Okay.
It looks great now.
Do you want to give it like a like an arrow pointing at it? This is a snake.
No, that's terrible.
No one's gonna fault you for that. I'm just saying, if you wanted to, no one's gonna judge you. No, this is a safe space. If you want to do that, you can.
I would judge me.
You would judge you. Okay, well.
In the afterlife, I would judge me.
That's something else that we gotta break down and talk about.
Yeah, like we gotta accept that. Death. I don't know. I got nothing. I was gonna go for something. Talking about death some more, because that's the whole thing.
Okay.
One of the other things I really realized as I was doing all this death work and like personal reflection was that I only cared about my death up to the point that I died, right?
Okay.
So for me, I knew that if I had like the luck or lack of luck, depending on your opinion, I personally think it would be luck, to know that I was dying, like have some time.
Mm-hmm.
All of that time would be all about me. I would do whatever I want. It'd be nobody else's business. If I didn't want to talk to you, I wouldn't talk to you. The end. But once I died, I knew I didn't care about my body that much.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, when I was thinking about all this death, I realized that for me, the only reason I cared about death in the concept of my death and my dead body hanging out was not wanting to put stress on my family and the people that I love. So part of all this planning and part of all this talking was also talking to them about it and letting them know that if at the end of the day they didn't feel comfortable with what I wanted to do with my body, they didn't have to do it. Because at the end of the day, for me, I didn't have to live with my choices about what I wanted to do with my body, but they had to live with my choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look like you're going through like a moment right now.
I mean, yeah, no, that. I mean, I'm always having moments. Let's just get that out of the way. But no, that makes a lot of sense. The and something that I feel is shared with a lot of people's opinions, that they don't necessarily put as much stock into how they live, but more stock into how other people, or how they die, but how they live or die, but put more stock into how they affect others even after they stop being able to do actions, you know, to influence the world. Because even by simply not existing, or I shouldn't say not existing,
I'm dead. Just say I'm dead.
Yeah. I mean, but I want to be all fancy and and deep about it. But yeah, no, by being dead, not being alive, you can still affect, and you more than likely do still affect people that you were close to, are close to.
Yeah. For me, I still want people that I love to just not have to worry unless they want to, because I know my loved ones are worry warts, just like me. I wanted them to just have the space to do whatever they needed to live with the fact that I was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really wanted that. So, let me tell you what I have planned for my funeral, Christian.
Okay. Okay, really quick though, time check. We got 5 minutes before we got to call time. But
okay.
Tell me what you came up with.
So my dream funeral is pretty easy. If my loved ones have no money, donate my body to science. When you donate your body to science, you have two choices. Either keep me as cadaver in the fridge for people to like test things, just totally valid choice. Or one go and then set me on fire. I prefer the second one, where pretty much if you donate your body to science, your family can have your ashes in return once students are done using it, pretty much.
Okay.
I was pretty cool with that.
Yeah.
That was
one.
my cheap option. Second one, an ideal, is a open funeral pyre. So it's pretty much
like a Jedi.
A bonfire. Yes. But there's one very small town, I believe Colorado, where it is legal right now. It's only that small town in the United States. Because, honestly, big funeral home. And a lot of people don't really feel comfortable with the idea of death being something that happens in the open. Because of big funeral homes.
Yeah.
Right?
When you say big funeral home, you're like saying like big pharma, big tobacco, big funeral home.
So okay, you know how Disney pretty much owns all of media now?
Big media, yeah.
There's that. There's a whole thing. And so that would be my second, and then my most ideal, my most wonderful, my most favorite idea, and now that it's finally legal in California, I just want to be composted. Human
Nice.
composting. It's clean. It's giving back to the earth. I don't take up any extra space. I'm just worm food. The ideal. Right?
Yeah. And there, I know from sharing an office with you that that specific route also has a lot that goes into it. Like there's methods to it. There are different.
There's one really good method that has actually been shown to work pretty effectively and take a couple months. So when I was talking to you last, they were still in the experimental trials for it. But now it's pretty easy. So that would be my ideal. Okay. I think I am mostly done with mine. I just need to add some green and then I'm good. Oh, and then watercolor it.
I like how yours has color. Mine is just 2020.
It's very Inktober.
I mean, yeah, I shared with you what my Inktober things were. This is very much how I feel comfortable doing art and doodling.
Makes sense. So what I have on mine now is I have Dogwood and Morning Glory.
Okay. Hold on. Is there a representation of that in the thingy?
Yes, it's under Afterlife.
Okay, I am transitioning over so we can show. Okay, so you had what? You had Easter lily? No.
Dogwood, resurrection, sacrifice, and eternal life. So you're gonna go up.
Okay, so it's afterlife.
And then morning glory, resurrection, beauty, youth, and love. And that is because even though 2020 has been a shit fire on a good day, the days continue. The sun goes down, the sun goes up. And remembering that even as shitty and hard as the year's been for like most human beings on the planet, at least in the United States, the days will still come and go. And the sun will still rise and fall. The leaves will still pop up and pop out, and the birds will still sing. Even during a fire, which was kind of weird. That was a whole thing. And the last thing I have on mine is ivy, which is like at the very end of that. And what it represents is friendship. Because maybe this was a common experience for a lot of people, but I reconnected with a lot of my friends that I had lost connection with. I got closer to my sister and my mom in a different way than we would normally. I've been stuck in a studio apartment with my partner for 9 months and we haven't murdered each other. I feel like I've made better friends with my coworkers. Like, I don't know if before like 2020, you, me, and Tim would have been as close. I think we were friendly, but I think after surviving this year, we're a different level of friendly.
Yeah, no, I definitely share that sentiment. Like, I had cracks in my tombstone here, but after you saying Ivy and me looking at him, like, yeah, no, I'm gonna turn the cracks into little tiny Ivy things, making this tombstone look way bigger than it actually is. Like, here, I'm gonna make it with banana for scale.
I love the "it was" though.
All right, there you go, banana for scale.
Yeah, like, it was a shitty year. And I think for a lot of us, we had deaths in our lives, or we had to think about death in a way that we're not used to. And it's going to take many years for us to recover from this as people and as a community and as a people, a group of people. But I think one of the things that can be so comforting is that no one is alone with death. No one is alone. We all have and will experience it. We all know it more intimately than we say. And in that, we can always talk about it with each other. There's always an option. Even when we're scared or uncomfortable or not sure what to do, or when your coworker like says, yeah, I like talking about death as their check-in question for like every meeting with new people. You can always talk about it because it is a universal connecting human experience. Period.
The music synced up with you at the very end there and made it really touching. It was touching already. I will say that, but just that extra boost was really nice.
Are we gonna make our coworkers cry when they watch this?
No, absolutely not.
Funny.
They're just gonna look at my tombstone and laugh.
Like, here's the thing: if I can get Tim to cry in a nice, wholesome way, I'll be so impressed. But if I get like Sarah Harker or Sarah Woodside to cry, I'm gonna cry. I don't want to make them cry. Or if I get Lenora to cry or out, nope, don't want it. I want them to have lovely, positive lives.
Well, with that note, we're pretty much at time here. Oh, you got your watercolors and everything. As we're sharing our things to the camera, we should do sign-offs. Stuff that we've got planned. A little bit of a teaser into next week, and then outros. How's that sound? Cool.
I like that idea.
So, really quick, I got my RIP 2020. Again, having trouble. Goodbye. This thing. It was 2020. It was, and then also a banana for scale. Hold on. Let me get my head out of the way. Nope.
I have my symbolic gravestone for 2020 to represent the year. And you know what I'm gonna do when I'm done with painting this?
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna set it on fire.
Oh,
Not this year.
There you go. Yeah, no, this year deserves it.
Yeah. So if you want to set something on fire in a safe, moist environment, not California, it's totally okay to do that. Not California.
Unfortunately, like 100% of our audience is in California. So anyway, what do we got to look forward to with Variety Hour and everything? So really quickly, we're going to be doing this as much as we can weekly winter quarter. There's a few dates that line up with holidays and stuff where we won't be showing anything. Sometimes it will be me or Jess. It won't just be me and Jess for the rest of winter quarter. We're planning on having guests. We plan on having guest hosts and all these wonderful new things and people to talk about things that they love in a way that is safe and meant for your entertainment. Next week, So we talked about ending 2020. Next week, we're going to start with new beginnings. We're going to be talking about what people do when the clock resets or doesn't reset. We'll see. What else do we have to look forward to, Jess?
We have a couple things going on. So if you keep an eye on our Instagram, we always put updates on events coming up. So some key things that are coming up this quarter are slug stories submissions. So if you have a story about being a 9-10 student, especially our frosh, especially this year, that you want to share, that you want future students to know, go ahead and look at our Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and submit. Also, if you are a nerd, like a geek, like peak geekness, we have Geek Week coming up at the end of this month, March, and you can still sign up for slots. So if you want to be the nerdy person that you've always been, but with other nerds, this is the year. If you like literature, we have a literature week, we have a sci-fi week, everything's happening this year. So yes, we're kind of stuck at home right now. But if you ever want to do something really weird but didn't have time to, now is the year.
Cool.
Anything I'm missing?
No, I think you got. Oh wait, we had something that we wanted to plug next Saturday.
Oh yes.
And we'll plug this again next week because we're going to be not this Saturday, the following Saturday, correct?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
I think it actually got maybe. But next Saturday. Oh, that's why. Boom. Next Saturday, the COCO, which is the Co-Curricular Office at 9 and 10, is doing a wellness program. If you're interested, you can go ahead and find it either on the COCO's webpage, on our Instagram, or on the college's 9 and 10 event calendar. So if you are looking for an introduction to yoga or how to get use out of journaling, which is a very good idea, by the way, you should definitely journal, or just hang out with other people over, the Zooms, this is a really great opportunity for you. That's going to be on the 16th of this month.
Cool.
I think that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
We did it. We got through another episode. The producers hopefully don't cancel us before the third one. Anyway.
Please. I just got to paint. I got paid to paint. This is a great day.
Anyway, this has been Variety Hour with Jess and Christian. I'm Christian.
Jess.
Yeah. I was Jess. And so yeah, we'll see y'all next week again for some new beginnings.
Take care of yourselves.
Bye.